Jeez, what's happening?
I went to this school, but have you heard about the former location? Münchenbryggeriet?
What?
München Brewery.
I can eat Swedish meatballs great. Speaking, forget it.
You haven't tried them yet?
Yeah, I did yesterday.
No, it wasn't meatballs.
Well, it was something Swedish. It was something. It counts. It's meat. I don't know.
Whatever.
The food here so far has been great. Yeah, when I was in school, it was like, you would rather starve.
Yeah, kind of the same for me. Whatever. It's good now. Okay. I went here, or at the Munich, like the German town, city, Munich Brewery, Münchenbryggeriet, between 04 and 07. So I graduated it was more than 8 years ago. And since then, I've been studying music a bit more, like 5 years, and also teaching a bit, because I've been studying music, as an electric guitar teacher. And also done a lot of gigs, mostly in one kind of situation, playing a lot of cover band stuff. And I felt like I can't do only this for much longer. So last spring I decided I have to do something else. So I gathered as much money as I ever could. I got a guitar grant, very happy about that. And I sold some guitars that I didn't use and other stuff. And I booked an 11-week-long trip to the US. Because, I've heard some weird rumor there might be some good music over there. Good musicians, I don't know why, but it felt like it could be a good thing to go there to get inspired. So I did a road trip for 4 weeks with a friend, and then he left, and I felt like, I should stay longer. Another 4 friends joined for 1 week, and then they left. And I felt like, I'm gonna stay here in Nashville, where we spent these times, the last 2 weeks with these people. And I spent another 6 weeks in Nashville, and then I left home. And during these weeks, I met you through a really, really, really great guitar player called Guthrie Trapp. He's based in Nashville, and he's played with everyone, age perspective, from Dolly Parton, old country artists, to Taylor Swift, young country artists.
He means established from a long time ago.
Oh, sorry, not old. Just mature, grown-ups. Okay, whatever. We got to know each other, and actually Jenny was the only one that I actually spent time with in New York the last 4 days of my trip. So, because you were there.
It's because I had a car. It's really because I had a car.
Yeah. Something like that. Okay, but then we started talking about doing something together in Europe, because
I think he was just kidding. He was like, yeah, maybe you can come to Sweden, whatever. He didn't realize I would actually get on a plane and come here. Yeah.
That's crazy. Picking her up at Arlanda, the airport.
Yeah,
I saw her last time in New York last year.
What is that? The big building up there at the airport? It's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know what it
is.
is.
Out what that is. Okay,
it's like
whatever.
A saucer. It's like a spaceship.
Yeah. Okay. But we started talking because she's been touring independently for many years.
It means being broke.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
And not having any friends. Or being a no one everybody knows, as you said.
Yeah, I'm a no one. Everybody knows.
So actually, the main topic about these coming hours, or whatever, how long we're gonna keep on doing this, is a lot about being independent, and the thing that you don't have to be famous or rich.
Just infamous.
Yes, you could still make a living from playing your original music all around the world. You've been touring in more than 15 countries?
That's right.
Yeah? Mm. And you released 6 albums or something?
It's about.
Yeah. And she's not famous, she's not rich, but she's here touring in Europe again.
Hello.
And that's a cool thing. Very inspiring for me. So, would you mind telling me, because I have a few questions I would like to know the answer.
Okay.
How did you first get inspired or interested in music? What was the first this is cool?
I think when I first was introduced to the piano, I was really, really, really young. I grew up in foster homes until I was 4. I don't know what you say in Swedish about that.
Yeah.
So anyways, and I was adopted when I was 4, and I got really lucky to end up in a family with a piano. And apparently in one of the first homes I was staying in for a while, there was a piano as well, or they took me to a piano or something. And I don't know, maybe you might relate to this, that some of us are just meant to be musicians. It's like we don't have a choice, it's what we do, it's what we become good at. Whether we work really hard to perfect a craft, or we might just have some sort of draw to an instrument or 5 instruments or whatever you want. Yeah, so mine was the piano at first. I think it was something about the fact that it was this big, huge thing with buttons, and then you can press buttons and a bunch of sound would come out, and I thought that was really cool. And then
quite easy too, right?
Yeah, yeah, and the overtone series, the overtones, I didn't know then that's what that was, but I loved the sound of just holding down the notes. It was just really awesome. So when I was adopted finally into a family at 4 and there was a piano there, I think it was just like super luck, because I'm not sure what would have happened in my future if that hadn't been there. Because sometimes now I walk into people's houses. You know, I stay a lot on the road. We'll get to that story later, but I travel a lot and I'm often guests in people's homes, if not in a hotel, depending on the situation. And I can feel it. I can feel when I'm in a home with no instruments. You know what I mean? Especially without a piano. It's like a feeling. You know, but I was really lucky to end up in a house with a piano. But I was really small, so my parents, my final parents, they noticed I loved to play, but I couldn't reach the sustain pedal, so they got this box that I could put my feet on, and the pedal, it would push the pedals for me. So that was really cool. So
I didn't know that detail.
Yeah. And I would stay on the piano and press on the box, and then the overtone series would be there, you know, because when you press a sustain pedal and you make your chords or you play whatever, you're going to play the shapes, the sound would take over. And I think that was just so awesome. And also it blocked out if anyone was talking and I didn't want to hear them, I could just play. Just kidding. Maybe. So yeah, so that was the piano. That's when I got started. And then they gave me lessons and they helped me a little bit develop my interest, I think. And also I had a really hard time reading music. It was really difficult for me. My adopted parents were very, very cool and put me in lessons right away. When I was 4.5, 5 years old, I was now taking classes with the piano. And it was really hard for me, like the dots, the black dots, and then you have to look at the right hand up there and the left and rhythm and the dots and do it at the same time. Like I could have just ripped up the paper. So forget it. It was too hard because I wanted to just play. I didn't want to have to learn yet. I wanted to play whatever. So I encourage you not to do that, but I did that. So it took a lot longer to learn the language of music. I learned the expression of music first. And to remember what I would make up, I would take paint or crayons or markers, and I would draw the color of the sound. And then I would remember these terrible masterpieces, whatever they were. And so at home, like I have these books, I guess, of these like, whatever you want to call them, painting things. And that's really kind of how it started. The guitar came later. My mom said, you're not going to be able to travel with a piano on your back, so you better learn something. And that's that. Yeah.
Cool story. I didn't know all these details. I learned something new about you every day. That's cool. Okay. So I just want to say, if you have questions, just throw them out. Or maybe just like call some attention first. But this is sort of like you should be able to participate, right? Okay, so then later, in like college or university age, you were actually invited to a jazz program, right?
Yeah, so I think my high school teacher did a really good job at making me look like I could do music well. Because I didn't know a lot. You know, you everyone has their own order of development. And I really don't think that there should be a right way or a not right way. But I didn't know a lot. I didn't really know who Charlie Parker was, or really about Miles Davis, or really anyone. I knew Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday and Duke Ellington because my parents had the CDs and I just listened to them on repeat. But the history of music and the relationship and all of that, I didn't know all of it. But I auditioned for a school and actually didn't even think I was gonna go. And then I met Kenny Burrell. Didn't really know who he was either at the time. But if you don't know who he is, he's an incredible, historic guitar player, kind of like Wes Montgomery, if you've heard of him or studied him. But in his own right, he's really made a difference in the music world and in jazz. So he decided to start teaching programs about Duke Ellington and Ellingtonia, which is the concepts of what Duke Ellington would do to put together his big bands. Instead of just picking music and musicians to make the music happen, he would pick people that he studied how they played their instrument specifically. And he used a lot of movement, I think, and feeling and music to put together his bands. And there's so much more to actually Duke Ellington's story. Enough so that Kenny Burrell created a program at UCLA and eventually turned it into a full-fledged jazz program. So instead of being like high school and then where you are, you could go right from high school, you could go all the way to university and do music there. So I ended up going and doing music there. Well, when I did that, I studied some jazz, but it was hard because all of the musicians really knew so much about jazz, and I didn't really. So I collected as much information as I could, but like I told you from when I was younger, I just wanted to express music, you know? But I do encourage you to try to do both. It's helpful to always learn about who's before you and what people have done, because you can develop choices intentionally by having that information. So that's really, once that happened, I noticed I would have a hard time remembering lyrics of other people, and like, you know, I would try, and I didn't want to make any mistakes. So I started writing my own songs. Even though I composed a lot when I was younger, I really started to write my own songs, and that's sort of how it started. Recording, a lot of it was demo work. The recordings were okay, and I just studied what people did, and then I just did it myself. When people said, I want to tour, or I'm touring, and there was an entire infrastructure of a record company and a manager and an agent and everything, a machine to move, I thought, oh well, I'll just tour. So I just booked gigs and got in my car and started that way, and learned from the ground up. And I think we'll talk a little bit later, there are pros and cons to doing either or and all of the above. But one thing that really was an advantage for me was that I was able to step up each step of the ladder pretty specifically, so that later when I was offered opening slots and being able to tour theaters in Europe and everywhere else, right? I knew already local musicians in so many cities and local venues and things like that, and session players, you know, and I really tried to learn what other people were doing and why they were doing it and how they did it, so I could know. So when we met, it was kind of pretty cool because both of us had this draw and interest in Nashville for our musicianship, and we both have our own prospective careers in a way, and now we can be here in Sweden together. Yeah.
Hey, cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah. We're gonna play some music for you too. It's not gonna be cheap. Okay, so one thing I've noticed you use a lot.
Maybe I should use this. We use social media a lot.
Oh yeah.
When did you start out? Why do you use it? What's the pros?
Okay.
What does it give you back? Maybe.
Well, yeah, I really like social media and the platforms. Almost kind of like reality TV. It's really fun. But there's a right way to do it, and then there's a too much way to do it, I think. But for the most part, I really love documenting. And I think that's one of the reasons why I really love recording in a studio and making records. And it's also another reason why my approach to making records is a certain way. Because rather than constructing every piece of every song, and which I have done before with producers, and I like that also. One of my favorite things to do is to get into a room with microphones and with musicians and just play the music, which is actually how this record happened. Live, one take, kind of what we're gonna do today. You're gonna see, we're gonna play some songs from the record, and David is going to emulate, he's gonna play a lot of what Guthrie Trapp's parts are from the recording, which you haven't heard yet, but he learned them, right? And then he's gonna also add and embellish, improv, his own style. But one of the things that I really love in general is documenting. So whether it's making a record, a moment, that's what a record to me is. It's a record of a moment. And I really value doing something live, right? Or a photograph, or a painting, and it's a moment in time. So in my mind, social media is also moments in time. And so it's, to me, I love it. So on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, they're all different platforms, as you know, Vine, whatever. I don't always use it to interact, in interaction. I don't really interact so much. I do a little bit, but what I love to do is document. I might document a country, something specific in a country, a feeling, a mood, some food, a picture. I might document, obviously, like music moments, for sure, many times, where we are. A lot of times I'll do videos like we're doing today, and we'll clip them together, and so people can kind of follow along and do what they do with that. But another thing that social media really has helped me with, which is sort of how I ended up with David indirectly, is, for example, I decided one day, after playing a lot where I'm from, which is Los Angeles, California, and I've also played a lot in New York City, and then little regions around the United States, I tried to go back on a regular basis to build what you would say would be a fan base, let's say. But I didn't spend a lot of time in Nashville. I hadn't done that yet, and I wanted to. And my music went from being singer-songwriter, a folk, to kind of produced in a pop way. And then it kind of reverted back to the soul, folk, kind of Americana rootsy music that I think it just so happens that my music fits in. So I thought, I'll just pack my car and I literally packed a tent, and I drove to Nashville, and I planned to go for a couple weeks. And I'm not like David. I didn't save up a bunch of money. I do something a bit different. I've had maybe like $1,000, and I recoup it constantly. So instead of really having the biggest savings in the world, I am able to keep the same money running in a circle so that I can constantly be in the present moment, moving forward, doing. And so that's one of the little secrets that has helped me tour. But the other one would be social media. For example, when I got to Nashville, I had a few gigs, performances that were set up, but because a lot of people didn't really know me, I researched like jam sessions, open mics that were of value, or different types of music situations to go to. And sometimes I would go 3 times in one day to different venues, just showing up. I mean, so much so that I didn't even put my guitar in a case because I didn't even have the time to take it out sometimes. Like I was just running to play, and it was really fun. But one of the things I did was I documented every moment I could, within reason of not being too much on the internet. So photos and tagging and things like that, and hashtags. And within a very short amount of time, and Nashville happens to be a bit of a smaller city, I really ended up meeting a lot of people. And it was really helpful to build relationships as a starting point. And at the point where sometimes I would walk into a bar to play and people would already know who I was because they were seeing me in feeds. And I think that that's pretty cool. That's really helpful, I think, so, yeah.